Hello everyone, my name is Blackwatch and thank you for joining me for today's episode of my brand new series, and that's going to be called Gameplay Autopsy. So we're going to take you through a ranked match, basically. It's not the full ranked match, unfortunately the first round has failed to be captured because I forgot to press the record button. So you're going to be missing out on that, but the whole plan is that you're going to just see unedited gameplay of me in a match, and you can see the mistakes I make, the good decisions that I make, and I'll talk you through my thought process whilst I'm playing the match, and hopefully it can give you an idea of how to basically improve if I do anything useful. And if I don't do anything useful, at least you'll have a chance to know not to do what I did, essentially. So the first issue here is one I'm not going to pause for. It's basically the fact that Castle's decided to reinforce that wall. So my entire thinking here is that I'm going to set up the 2 mirror strat. It's pretty standard for Aviator Room on Villa, and unfortunately it's been negated by him doing that, but that's okay. So it's a small price to pay. So the idea of this strat is that you have one mirror on the right here in the bar that you then have a clean line of sight outside towards, and then you have the other one that will give you a clean line of sight into the office for another angle to contest people who are at the balcony. I like to cover myself behind there because a lot of the time you'll find people can sneak into that hallway and basically just rip you up early doors. Now, here's problem number 1. What I should have done is tried to move over to where Castle was and then destroy the Hibana pellets here. Unfortunately, I have not managed to do that, and so as a result, my main defensive tool, which is my black mirror, has been completely wiped out, and that is a problem for numerous reasons. Now, admittedly, Castle was in a position where he could have done something about it and he didn't, but you know, sometimes you just have to kind of accept that these things don't always happen. So we're not in the best position to defend now. We're kind of stuck without our favourite thing, and now Castle has succumbed. And I'm lagging a little bit as well, which doesn't help much. So I'm trying to figure out why I'm lagging. I don't know why I'm whipping a nitro cell out, but I do regardless. There's people in the window there. I do go for the peak, but with my connection being the way it was, it's just unfortunate that it's just part of the joys of living where I live. I didn't quite manage to get any shots on there. And to be honest, in the position I'm in, it's not really necessary to make a peak there. That was just me getting a little bit sort of agitated, just anticipating action and hoping that people will come. And I remedy that mistake here a little bit. I'm just going for very quick peaks. I'm not contesting it for too long, just taking my time and waiting for them to arrive, basically, and hoping that that results in victory. Now, this is a mistake. That one there is a big mistake because I'm exposing myself for far too long when, as it stands, no one's actually pressured, so there's no need for me to be exposing myself for that amount of time. Now, we've had a breach into Vault, and so I'm letting my teammates know what's going on. They breached in, but fortunately we've managed to get them down to just one person left. I know they're coming from here. Instead of holding the angle, I make big mistake numero uno, and that was to pressure him. There was no need to pressure. And here, there was no need to get back up as well when I was so low. When you have a situation like that, where you've only got one person left, it's not really worth pushing, because a lot of the time if you push, your teammates will then be encouraged to push as well, and you leave yourself in a position where everyone's just feeding the enemy team. So that was a big mistake. Unfortunately, during that round, we lost our random, so it was just the 4 of us left in the lobby. I'm pretty sure, as far as I remember, this game didn't end very well, and I didn't cover myself in glory, but that's what this series is going to be about. It's about showing you what I did wrong, how I could improve on it in the future, all these kind of things. So I'm kind of fiddling about and I don't really know who to play, and I decide to go with Doc. And the reason I go with Doc is because we're defending Trophy, and usually when you're defending Trophy, you have some good opportunities to peek people who are trying to attack the master bedroom, because they'll stand out on the balcony waiting to climb into the windows. So take advantage of the ACOG and then hopefully get some use out of the gadget. But this is a pretty risky strat because obviously Doc is not the fastest operator in the world, and so if you do have to go back to site, it's not the quickest thing you've ever seen. And half the time, if everyone's dead and you're the last option for your team, your team is just going to lose, which is unfortunate, but you know, these things happen. This bulletproof cam, I'm a big fan of, because for some reason it doesn't get noticed very often. As long as you don't tag on it, people will just not see it. Doxy was AFK, so I need to throw in the little punish slap there. And this is all just basic stuff to set up. I'm trying to take out the drones so they don't know 100% that I'm rotating to the other side. But the suspicion is, in that situation, that they probably do realise that's what I'm planning to do. And as you'll see in just a moment, you can hear that there is some action going on. Folk have come around this side, and my suspicion is that what they've done is they've rappelled up onto the roof from this location. Now, I read that as, oh, people are nearby and they're going to be coming in quite soon. When in fact, that wasn't the case. They got on the roof and then they pushed a totally different position. So they pushed towards the alibi, which is Lucky, or got lucky just. So he's one of my teammates. So when I hear that he's starting to take pressure and that they're coming in on his position, which is the window next to the trophy room, I then decide to move back. But I'm still sort of half set on the fact that I've heard the sounds of people coming around here, and I go for the peek early doors and there's no one there. So I've been told that there's people on the east, but I've not been told exactly where, and so I just assume that they're going to arrive, and it turns out to be a mistake because that particular hole is done. So I try here to go for the shot on the person who's set off the Prisma, and it doesn't work because they don't push, and instead I get the Ash pushing, which I totally didn't expect. I didn't realise anyone was on that balcony, and so I panicked, and we're about to pause because here comes crucial mistake number one. My teammate had died in that position before, so I should have been aware of the fact that there was someone pushing from that window. I wasn't aware of the fact that they'd actually come into the building itself, but I also wasn't prepared for her to be pushing. I did hear her coming, but because it's not something I preempted, I ended up just totally panicking, fluffed it. It should have been a kill, so from the point of view of my personal contribution to that fluff, it was almost entirely because I just didn't have the technical aim to get the kill. But from the point of view of the game sense thing, I shouldn't have been waiting on that angle in the office for so long. Number one, because as soon as that gets opened, it's very obvious for the enemy team to actually see that you're going to be holding that angle. And number two, because I knew that there was definitely pressure from that position, and I could have held quite a favourable angle from that office hallway into the trophy bookcase room, which is where she would have had to vault from. And anyone in a vaulting position is always more vulnerable because they're locked in an animation that they don't have any control over. So that is a huge mistake, and I think that cost us the round as a result. And going 2-1 down when you're defending is very, very bad, especially in Siege. Siege tends to favour defenders over attackers, and so yeah, big bad one. Thankfully, teammates managed to do quite well for the next little section. They get a few kills, and then it's just down to Doxy right at the end, and unfortunately she basically gets pincered. There's two people pushing from two different angles, and it's not particularly easy to deal with, and so we end up losing this round, sadly. But we're just going to skip ahead and we'll move on to the next round. Next round, we swap over, we're attacking. I almost always pick the ruin spawn point when I'm playing on Villa, just checking the scoreboard to see how weak I'm performing. And I know that we're going to need hard breach, but I'm assuming that Lucky is going to go for hard breach, and so I take Blackbeard. Blackbeard was buffed after Ember Rise came out because his ADS speed basically got buffed on both his weapons, and it's happened universally to most weapons in the game. It's not a huge buff, but for Blackbeard, when it was already so slow, it's definitely noticeable. The trouble is, as you're going to see in a moment, I had a bit of a problem with actually squaring off the targets that I was trying to deal with. So I got shots on, but actually confirming the kills was not so easy. So let's skip ahead to that quickly. So again, spawned in, do the usual stuff, get cams. I'm using the Mark 17. Now, remember that, because that is the gun that kind of lets me down here because of its lack of damage. The DMR that he has is not the nicest in the world, but trading automatic fire to get significantly higher damage per shot for essentially the same magazine capacity is a very favourable trade. I'm just pre-firing the mirror spots because I'm assuming that people are going to look in them, and here will be the next mistake. Now, I keep flipping and I see that someone's in vault, and all of this is just down to poor reactions. That one, it was unfortunate. I think if I used the last shot to aim down and shoot through the sofa, I probably would have confirmed the kill. Ends up not mattering because someone gets the kill for me there, and so we're safe. The person's dead regardless, but they could have been killed a lot sooner had I just used that properly. And if I'd used DMR, I don't think it would have taken anywhere near as long. This is another example. So I would chalk these hits and not kills down to a lack of accuracy, a lack of reaction speed, and a poor weapon choice. With Blackbeard, it might seem uncomfortable to use a DMR because it has a lot of recoil, but it's just the better weapon, ultimately. And this dock here should be a free kill, but I'm not timing my shots properly, and part of that is down to the fact that when you're using a gun with only 20 rounds in it, it does feel a bit difficult to lay down suppressing fire, especially with the fact that my ammo count is going down. I'm feeling quite conscious of the fact that I'm running out of ammunition because I don't really want to be using Blackbeard without his gun shield. Now, I'm solving another problem that's arisen that you probably noticed, and that's the fact that I took far too long to actually move in and do something useful. I was holding angles that weren't giving me any value other than a couple of shots here and there, and those shots here and there are completely negated by the fact that they do have a dock. So what I should have done is I should have rappelled in and either taken the window angle, which would have been a stronger position, or I should have rappelled in and started to pressure the site instead. This is going to be another moment for a key mistake in 3, 2, 1, and dead. That situation could have been entirely avoided if I'd just been smart enough to realise there is only one body position he is going to take after standing and killing someone. Every time that I'd engaged with him, he'd been in a standing position. So he would have been standing and he would have been at head height. And instead, I sort of half aimed at him and half aimed in his general direction. I should have been ready to pre-fire that, and that was my fault because I was anticipating being shot from a different position. What I didn't realise is that my teammate, the Glaz, was actually in the vault and the tactics room already. So the need for me to actually look out for other sides was just not there, and as a result, give away another easy death. And it just shows that sometimes you think about too many things and you should really focus on the one thing and make sure that you know where your teammates are, because they can cover a lot of angles that you think might be your responsibility when they're not. And it basically threw away a round that would have been quite an easy take, because as far as I'm aware, the Mira, who was the other person left alive, was actually down, and Doc didn't have any stims to pick her back up. So we're moving on to what I think ends up being the last round of this particular match, unfortunately. I think I made a very silly decision here and basically became irrelevant for the majority of the round. Up on the balcony, just chilling, someone tells me that there's someone in the cupboard, so I think naturally, as a Blackbeard, I can go in and I can win that gunfight at close range. I think it's clear on the left, and it seems to be, and then I go in and I try to engage. Now, changing angles there, I decided not to ADS, and that is what killed me. He may be faster than he used to be, but he's still very slow, and that is what directly led to my snuffing there. So this is definitely one of the weakest ranked games I'd played in a long time. There are a lot of mistakes that I made, but I think the key takeaways were essentially this, and I'll run through them now whilst Lucky's unfortunate demise runs in the background for you. I was far too focused on holding angles that I thought were going to be profitable, only to find that I got nothing out of them and essentially just wasted time. There's too much time wasting involved. So the first example was with the dock. and the second example was with the Blackbeard. You cannot waste so much time in a ranked game. You only have 3 minutes. Obviously, when you're defending, you're trying to waste time and stop the attackers from getting in. But you can also waste time yourself and allow the attackers to get a foothold when you could have denied them. So I got absolutely slapped here. That's probably the biggest problem, because those 2 rounds were both lost based on the amount of time that I wasted, essentially. Had I not been forced to make that pressure play by pushing into the docks, a line of sight with a Mira there, probably wouldn't have ended that way. Similarly, when it comes to the dock play, I knew that something was going on elsewhere and I didn't engage with it. I just decided to engage with the immediate angle that I thought I would get value out of, and I just ended up getting fragged easily. So don't be too focused on those kind of situations, on those angles that end up being death traps and time sinks for you. And the other one is make sure that your weapon choice and your sight choice is appropriate for the map you're on. A DMR with an ACOG on a map that has quite a lot of close range encounters is probably not the best plan in the world. It was maybe okay when I was using the ACOG on the office site, but if I'd had the DMR, I would have dealt enough damage. Whereas I made part of the change that was helpful, which is to swap out the weapon for that second round of Blackbeard, but I didn't make the final crucial change, which was to get rid of the long range sight on a map that has a lot of close range engagements, and as a result, my ADS time was slower, and I ended up getting bullied by the Vigil in there. So, I hope you enjoyed this particular episode of I Suck in Ranked at the moment, and it'll give you an idea of things that you can maybe watch out for in your own gameplay, and hopefully try to avoid, or in the cases of times when I got things right, which was pretty much no occasions in this particular one, you missed all of it, and there was the 3 kills at the start. You can take that away as well. You can think that maybe I did something right to get those 3 kills, but still lost the round, and that's what matters at the end of the day. So don't get too tilted. Have a nice time on Ranked. Remember that everybody sucks eventually at some point, but you can always get better, and it's helpful to look back on your own poor performances and improve for next time. So I'll have a Mozzie guide out for you very soon, lads, but thank you for sticking around. You're going to be seeing a hell of a lot more of me in the next few weeks. Dos vidania, everybody. Bye-bye.